The 2024 presidential race ended yesterday, and this is what the country and the world woke up to this morning. Take a look.
I'm sorry. No! Why?
I don't know. I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America Makes a Perilous Choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now.
Okay, so we have the women of The View reacting to the election. This is going to be good because they have Trump derangement syndrome like full blast. There is no cure for them. They hate the man. They hate his spouse. They hate everything about him. They were full in for Harris, all of these ladies, and it didn't work out. So now let's see how Sunny explains the fact that the country rejected her way of thinking. They essentially rejected what she was telling people. So let's see what they say.
I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America Makes a Perilous Choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry, not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that.
You know, thinking about that statement, because obviously she's talking about abortion, right? And the fact that not everywhere in the United States you can have an abortion. In New York, where they're at, it's not only legal, it's like enshrined in their constitution. So New York, you have a right to an abortion, but not, in Texas. But like, for instance, as a guy, I can never have an abortion. So, it's not like a right that I ever had. So technically she had more rights than me. She could have them, but I can't have a baby. So it's pretty much useless for me to exercise my right to an abortion. But I think this is the fear tactic. Like, they've taken rights from us. Now, in some places, that is 100% true. In Texas, women can't have abortions anymore. That's a right they've lost. But in New York, where Sonny's at, it's not. So I don't really even think that's... that's not really a takedown of what she's saying. It's just the reality of she's essentially saying she's fighting for other women across the country who don't have that right, like the women in Florida, for instance, but not for herself and her children, because they literally, if they live in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, any one of those blue northeastern states, they have a right to an abortion.
So again, I'm profoundly disturbed that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution did not prevent someone who participated in an insurrection from becoming president of the United States. I think that going forward...
January 6th wasn't an insurrection. And I keep saying it. It was literally a security failure. They didn't have enough security guards there. I've done a full expose on it. I went through the staffing. I go through the video. I've broken it all down. And just go search my channel for January 6th and you'll see it. The total breakdown. They even had permits. They knew they were coming. But if you have they literally had 5 officers to stop 10,000 people who are coming. That's a recipe for disaster. They didn't have the staffing there. And then when they did call in the National Guard, it was hours after the thing happened. So I don't think you can blame Trump for the security failures at the Capitol. And I also don't think you can blame Trump for him saying, go walk down to the Capitol and, and what did he say? He said, matter of fact, you know what? Let me play that clip.
You have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country.
Now, that doesn't sound like he's inciting a riot. It sounds like he said, go down there, we're going to peacefully protest, let our voices be heard. Hell, the right to protest is actually in the Constitution, right? The right to freely assemble. So I don't I don't think that's enough to stop him from running again for re-election. That wasn't, again, an insurrection. It just wasn't. So I know there's going to be people out there who disagree with me. I say watch my videos on it, and you'll see. It was definitely not insurrection. It was a riot for sure. It was a riot. Those people should be jailed. The people who broke stuff and injured cops and all that stuff, they should be punished. But this wasn't an insurrection. And I think it's disingenuous to say that. But let's see what Sonny continues to say.
The convicted felon box on employment applications better be taken off, because if you can be the president of the United States, then you should not be prevented from employment in this country. Because I remember applying for my jobs as a federal prosecutor, and there was a box for convicted felons.
Well,
and so that box better be taken off. And I think our healthcare system is now at risk.
Well, just at this point in time, and she's a lawyer, so hopefully she won't get the defamation lawsuit. But at this time, he's not convicted because he hasn't been sentenced. You only convict him when you're sentenced. He has been found guilty on 34 counts. So that goes enough. But he's not convicted. He's not a convicted felon yet. But he is definitely been found guilty. So, but it's easier to say, yeah, he's a convicted felon. And about the whole box thing, if people, there's no, and Sonny's a lawyer too, so I don't know why she doesn't get this. The Constitution lays out the requirements for the positions in government, right? This is the requirements to be a judge, requirements to this. In those requirements, it doesn't say you can't have been convicted of a crime. Right? To be president, you got to be 35, U.S. citizen, natural born, blah, blah, blah. Right? That's all you got to be. So if people know that you're a felon, as she said, and still vote for you, that still allows you to be president. Now, does that allow me to work with children? No, because we're, so I think she's being a little overzealous with the whole take the convicted felon checkbox off. But some jobs, it doesn't matter if you're a convicted felon or not. Some jobs, it does. Being president, it doesn't matter. And also with the caveat, he's not a convicted felon as of yet. But I think next week he's being sentenced. So
I think no fluoride for anyone.
Yeah, economists have made clear that he's going to increase the debt by $7.75 trillion. I'm worried about mass deportation and internment camps, and I'm also worried about Elon Musk warning Americans to prepare for temporary hardship. I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed-race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country.
And that's the issue. That's where Sonny has shown her hand, right there. That's the issue. I would have been happy. She was voting for the race of the person. She's voting for Kamala because of what she was, right? Mixed race woman with a Jewish husband. She wasn't voting for Kamala because of what policy she put forward. It's wild because this thinking that Sonny's putting forward was literally rejected by the electorate. It was rejected. We don't owe you my vote because you're black. I don't owe you my vote. That's how Tiffany Henyard got into office, right? She's black. Let's just vote for the black person. Disaster, right? We get those disasters. So now people are like, well, I'm not going to vote for who I think looks the closest to me, because that's a stupid reason to vote for somebody. I'm going to vote for you because your skin color is closer to mine. That's ridiculous. Because you're from a mixed race family, that's ridiculous. You know what? Why I want to vote for you? Because I think you're qualified, because I like your policies, and because I think you're the best person for the job. If she said that, I would have no problem. But she's right to the identity politics, which the country just rejected.
And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country.
Well, I think
Cultural resentment? What is she? Cultural resentment. What does she mean by that? That's ridiculous. And just so you understand, Hispanic men voted in favor of Trump. 55% to 50. Most men voted in favor of Trump. Trump got 25% of the black male vote. Matter of fact, he did better with black women than Biden did. Trump did better with black women against Kamala than he did with Biden. Are all those people racist and hate black and Latino people? See, the problem that I think Sunny doesn't understand is that the same people she's pretending to care about are the same people who voted for Trump. That's her issue.
I think I think it has to do with a lot of things, that being one of them. I'm obviously very disappointed. I'm very sad. I was at the Kamala Harris headquarters yesterday in Washington, and it was a very sad scene. The mood turned immediately, and I tell you, there's a quote I get a lot of inspiration from, and it's a quote that I read when I was reading about John F. Kennedy, and it says, "Whether I am on the winning or the losing side is not the point with me. It is being on the side where my sympathies lie that matters." And that to me brought me a consolation and inspiration this morning, because I have no regrets.
Yep.
I worked hard as hell to elect the first Black Asian woman president. History slipped through our fingers again. I worked hard as hell for Donald Trump not to be president.
Now, God bless her, right? She worked super hard for the first Black, Asian, whatever woman, mixed race woman to be. But next time, you should work hard for the person who you think is best to run the job. Why not try doing that? And remember, she's a Republican who is now talking like a Democrat. But as a Republican, voting, and now you're at the Kamala Harris HQ, which was like maybe a funeral home last night. If that's the case, why aren't you voting for the best person? Now, Kamala, she may have thought Kamala was the best person if that's what she's voting for, but she's not saying that. She's saying, I'm voting for her skin color and what she looks like. Not even for who she is, not even for her policies. And again, this is a Republican, so I bet you $1 that Trump policies more in line with hers. But maybe it's because Kamala's skin color more aligns with hers. I don't know.
But today, unlike Donald Trump and his followers, I acknowledge that he won. I hope for the best for our country. And I make a commitment to our LGBTQ, to our immigrants, to our elderly, to our young girls, to the women, that we will not stop fighting. We can be sad today. Today we can be sad.
But a lot of those groups, Latino men, voted overwhelmingly for Trump, right? It's like, I understand the messaging here, right? The messaging is we're still in it, but if you look at what happened last night, it's those same groups that you're saying that you're fighting for are the same groups who rejected this message.
Tomorrow, we stand up and we continue. We have every right as Americans, because we love this country, because this is the most exceptional country in the world. We have the right and the duty to speak up and denounce abuses of power, to be vigilant. And so I invite all Americans to do it. But we are doing what they didn't do. We are recognizing they won.
Yep.
Now let's see what happens when he is governing.
You look. We said to people, vote. We didn't tell people who to vote for.
Right.
We just said, go out. Well, yes, but I did not.
Yeah, I did.
Because I wanted to make sure people exercise that right. Too many people that I know died trying to vote.
Yeah. Right.
Okay? So we start with that.
That's reasonable. At least, hey, I don't care who you vote for, just go vote. And I think that's a good message to put forward, right? But I also think that we know this show was telling people to go vote for Harris. It's so she could say, I never said to tell people to go vote for anybody, so people go vote. But let's just be honest, just watch a week of The View and you know who they're telling you to vote for. So, I understand the technical. I didn't say exactly who to vote for. I said go vote, but we know what they're saying.
And think about this. She did this in 2 months.
Yeah, I know.
She did this in 2 months.
I got to give her credit for that, too. Trump's campaign was, 2 years that he's been running for president? Biden was running for the year and a half, almost a year and a half or whatever before he dropped out. So she did only have 2 months. And in 2 months, she made it a race. In the polls, at least. when the election, it didn't matter. The polls were horribly wrong. It wasn't as close as the polls made it seem. But she made it a race. She pulled out 200 something electoral votes, and she should be happy running a campaign in 2 months for a very unpopular candidate. She wasn't popular at all. So I do give her and her campaign this, and they got all the big wigs out. She's on stage with Taylor Swift and on Beyonce and all that stuff. So they did everything they could to win this thing. But like I keep telling all my friends, Kamala never gave you a reason to vote for her. She only gave you reasons to vote against Trump.
Yes, she did.
The
everybody
Paul's campaign.
can always say, oh, she should have done this, she should have done this, she did what she did. She was everywhere, she talked to everybody, and people didn't come out. I don't know why, and it doesn't even matter. He's now the president. I'm still not going to say his name. That's not going to change. Yeah.
Now, I do want to say one thing, though. I think it does matter. I think it does matter why people voted the way they did. And I think the problem with The View now is that they don't realize they are in a very small bubble. It seems big right now because you're in an audience, everybody's clapping like seals, everything you're saying, we love. But you're living in a bubble. You are living in a bubble. And I think if you open that bubble a little bit, start talking to people who disagree with your points and who can make the case that, why I want to vote for this person or why I think the way I think, then I think you get a broader perspective. But right now, I don't think they have that perspective. They all live in the New York left-wing high society bubble. And 99% of the people don't live where they live. They are not in that bubble. And that's why I don't think they could see what's really going on. They're blinded by their own privilege. And it's sad, but hopefully this will at least, I don't think it is, but I'm hoping that they would at least understand that this election, even though it was about Trump and Harris, it was more about, are we going to accept what the media tells us? When I started YouTube, my first viral video was Breonna Taylor. And the reason why I did that video because I researched the story and I was like, hey, I want to do police breakdown. So I researched the story. And when I researched the story, I was like, wow, ABC, NBC, CBS, all the major news, they got the story wrong. So I was like, I'll put out a video, just my findings. And that video did tremendously well. And the next viral video I did was U.S. soccer. And U.S. soccer got like 5 or 6 million views. It was an incredible. I remember looking at it, I was like, wow, this video just got 1 million views. I was shocked. It was like unbelievable. It was a totally viral video. And that video, I was the same exact way. I was reading cases back then. So I was reading the case of the U.S. women's soccer team, and they were equal pay. So I read the case. I went and got the ruling and read it. I was like, okay, let me explain to people why they lost, because I was like, I don't understand why they would lose. It seems open and shut. Then I found out that everything they were saying were lies. It was untrue. They had the receipts to back up that everything the women were saying were not true. And not only were they not paid less than the men, they were actually paid more than the men. like a real shocking turn of events. So I made that video, and people started saying that, you're sexist, you're this, you're that. I'm like, I'm not saying, I'm literally just reporting the facts, right? These are the facts. This is the court case. Here are the documents. Look at them yourself. You don't have to even trust what I'm saying. You can look it up yourself. And I was attacked for that. Then Rittenhouse. When I first saw the Rittenhouse, I said Rittenhouse is innocent. He's that was total self-defense. Said as soon as I saw the video, the first day. Then months later, I was called a racist against black people because I was saying Rittenhouse, this quote-unquote white supremacist, had killed black people. Then it happened again with Johnny Depp. All right, I'm called a sexist again for Johnny Depp. And so I say all that to say this. The View works for ABC, mainstream media. They are so used to pushing a narrative that we all have to accept because we don't have any outlet to the facts. They say, here are the facts. They massage them in a certain way and feed them to us to have us feel or want to understand the story in their narrative or their perspective. But now social media has given us the opportunity where I can take those facts and just give you the raw facts, and then it exposes the media spin. And that's what I'm talking about, their bubble. See, their bubble, they still are in that I can move millions of people by giving them my version of the facts versus just giving them the facts. So I hope the women of The View learn something, is that the majority of Americans disagree with them. That doesn't mean they're right. That doesn't mean they're right. But the majority of, I think it's time to try to understand why that is, versus just saying they all are lunatics and don't know what they're talking about. And then you're in this situation again where you're essentially coping with losing. Because at the end of the day, Trump won because Latino voters voted for him, black men voted for him, and black people in rural areas, black people and, well, maybe let's say black people, minorities in the inner cities, like in Philadelphia, didn't come out and vote for her. They didn't come out and vote for Harris. Voter turnout amongst the black community wasn't that great. And she needed it to be great. And she needed them to vote overwhelmingly for her. And they didn't. And they didn't because they weren't enthusiastic about her and they didn't like her policies. Tell me where I'm in the comment section. Tell me, hey, Nate, you just got this one totally wrong. I agree with The View, which is fine. But I think at the end of the day, we all know what this is about. This is about control of information. And The View wants to be able to control the narrative. Trump is still a bad guy. The people who voted him in are ridiculous. And the country is racist, sexist. Versus, you know what? We may have gotten it wrong. And we're going to reevaluate and see why people like this guy. Why people voted for this man. Because there's a reason. There's some reason why. So with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.